So a couple days ago, during our current move from the US to Germany and getting everything in order, I was laying in bed one night and was just thinking about things and realized I have a very big problem that's going to put kind of a wrench in the gears for us if I don't get this figured out. When we apply for our visas to go live and work in Germany, we need to turn in our passports. But I also need to leave for tour in about 3 weeks, which means if I turn in my passport for the visa stuff at the German embassy, I don't have a passport to go on tour. But I quickly remembered and realized it is possible to get a second passport from the country that you're living in. Not an emergency passport. That's something completely different. I'm talking about an actual second full passport. Now, the process actually way easier than I thought it was going to be, so I feel slightly, actually very relieved now that I've done this. But I figured this might make for an actual interesting video for people that may run into some of these scenarios, or maybe you just didn't know, and if you ever need it in the future, here you go. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about specifically applies to the US because that's where I'm living now. But from what I understand, a lot of governments do the same things, especially in these situations where you have to turn in a passport or have another situation that prevents you from going to a certain country with your passport. We're going to dive into a lot of this. I'm going to cover it really basically because a lot of this can be intimidating. But I realized after going through the process, it's quite easy. So let's run through this really quick. Now, the very first step into getting a second passport actually has more to do with eligibility. You actually have to have a reason on why you need this second passport before you can even apply and get approved for it. Now, for me personally, as somebody who does a lot of international travel where I'm bouncing back and forth all over the world on tour and stuff like that, oftentimes I have to apply for visas to other countries, work visas specifically to go work in that country on tour. And most of the time when you apply for these visas, you have to turn in your passport at the embassy that you go to or mail it in somewhere in certain circumstances. But that means you're without a passport until they send it back to you. So in this specific instance, this is more than enough reason for the US government to approve giving me a second passport, because if I'm always applying for these visas and turning my passport in, I need another one to keep going so it doesn't interfere with my travel and my work. There are some other circumstances too that can allow you to get a second passport. One of them actually sounds kind of weird, but it's passport stamps. There are countries that you will have a really hard time getting into or possibly denied entry if you've had a stamp from another country at some point. For example, I know that if you've been to Israel and you've gotten your passport book stamped, you could have a really hard time getting into some other Middle Eastern countries. Now, I have been told that nowadays Israel is doing a lot of like paper printout entry tickets rather than stamping your book because they know this is a problem and they're trying to help people out. But this is a thing, and this is a reason for you to get another second passport if you have a stamp that may not allow you entry to another country. And another one is pretty simple. If you've traveled a ton and you've run out of pages in your main passport book, you can apply for a second one and they will send you another one because obviously that first one can't be used anymore. So if you've got your reason on why you need a second passport, the next thing you need to do is get all of the documents in order that you're going to need to apply for this. There's two ways you could do it. You could do it by mail, which is what most people do when they're renewing a passport when they're not rushed for time. Or you could do it in person if you find a State Department near you that could do it same day or a very quick turnaround. So for me, I did this by mail because I have a little bit of time and I did get it expedited, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but it's going to take about a week to 10 days or something like that. And believe it or not, the whole process is pretty similar to just renewing a passport or applying for one anyways. So the forms are not that different. In the US, you're going to end up filling out the DS-82 form, which is a standard passport renewal form. Fill in all the information, get it all up to date, but you are going to need to go get an up-to-date passport photo. The easiest thing, there's so many places that do this, but I always go to like Walgreens, CVS, I believe FedEx does it. They're super cheap. It was like 15 bucks. They take your picture on the spot, print you out 2 photos, and you need to include that with your application. The next thing you'll need are your actual travel plans. You need proof that you're actually leaving and need the second passport. A lot of people would just provide plane tickets or something like that if they're doing a trip. For me, since this was work related, I did have to provide my plane tickets as well as the itinerary of all of the countries that I was going to on our upcoming tour. After that, there's a couple more things you can do to really help your case. The first one that you absolutely must do is actually write a statement about why you need a second passport. You just address it to whom it may concern, say, this is why I need a passport, this is where I'm traveling. And for me, it was very easy. It was just, hey, I'm going to be applying for a work visa for Germany, so my main passport will have to be turned in. I need this second passport to travel and do my actual job. So that was pretty easy. Beyond that, you could provide any other form of documentation that would help your case. For me, I was able to get the band's manager to write a letter that said, hey, we need him on this tour, so it would really help if you give him a second passport. It didn't say that verbatim, that was really loose, but it was something like that. After you have all that together, now you just got to worry about the fees and the money. Now, the standard fee for most passports, I believe, is about $165. But then you have to worry about if you're going to expedite it, which I did, which adds on a little bit of money. Then you need to decide if you want another additional passport card, which I didn't do this time because I already have another one, but that's even more money. So you're looking at spending anywhere between $165 or possibly about $250, depending on what you actually want to do. And then that doesn't include the actual shipping fees for when you have to send it out. And once you have all of your stuff together, it's super easy, man. You make sure you get everything that you've had documentation-wise, your passport photos, and your passport. Don't forget your actual passport because you need to send that first one in as well. You're going to put it in an envelope. You're going to send it FedEx, UPS, US Postal Service, whatever you want to do. You're going to send it to the address of the State Department that's closest to you or where you think you can get it turned around the quickest. And then at that point, it's pretty much out of your hands. You just got to sit and wait until they go through the process and approve it, and then it will be mailed back to you at the address that you provided on your documentation. And yes, they will send both passports back at the same time. Now, me personally, I don't like to leave anything up to chance on timing, so I actually always pay for expedited service when it comes to stuff like this because I just want it taken care of as fast as possible, because sometimes with the way governments work and they get busy, if you haven't paid for the expedited service, you may wait a little while depending on what their actual workload is. So I would always recommend doing the expedited service. Now, what happens if you're short on time or you feel overwhelmed and you just don't want to deal with all of this stuff on your own? Good news, there are a lot of companies that kind of handle this entire process for you. Now, you will have to pay more money because you're going to be paying somebody else to do it. There's more paperwork to be signed because you're going to have to give them authorization to do it on your behalf. But in my specific scenario, there are a couple great resources out there. The first is Global Access Entertainment. They are a company that's been in the entertainment industry for years and years. And one of the things they specialize in is travel documents for people in the entertainment industry. They can do visas and they can also do US passports, renewals, and second passports. And also, if you tour a lot, there's services like the Roadie Clinic, which also does this kind of thing for a cheaper rate, or people that might be in a bind financially, because the Roadie Clinic exists to help roadies with difficulties that they face while they're touring and at home. And if you're not in the entertainment industry, there are still tons of other outlets out there. You've got websites like Passport Depot, Premium Trip Solutions, Rush My Passport. There are so many services out there. You could do a quick Google search about this and just pick any one of them. They all provide the same service. You're just going to have to pay a little bit more money, like I mentioned, to have somebody else do it for you. But I have used some of these in the past, and they do work. So again, if you don't feel like dealing with all the paperwork and you do feel overwhelmed and you just want to leave it to somebody that knows exactly what they're doing, these solutions are out there for you. So from my personal experience of going through the second passport thing, it's really not a big deal. It was pretty easy, man. And now I don't have the stress anymore, because when I realized I needed another one, I was absolutely freaking out, but it'll be great. I have my second passport that I can use to travel to Europe. And then I have my main passport that I'm going to turn in for my German visa application. Perfect. So to wrap this up, I know this isn't the normal kind of content that's on this channel. We usually talk about music related stuff, but I just thought this was kind of a cool bit of information that maybe there's some people out there in the music industry that they run across an issue like this and it might be helpful, or there's just people out there that learned something new, or maybe years down the road you realize, hey, I might need a second passport, and you remember seeing this and you're not as stressed as I was when I first found out about it. But either way, thank you very much for your time. To everybody out there, wherever you are in the world, be safe, be kind to each other. I love you all, and I will see you very soon.